Ambassador Veltar stepped through the airlock of the human vessel UES Busan and immediately felt disappointed. The corridor was plain white metal with simple lighting. No impressive displays of power. No threatening decorations. Just clean walls and quiet humming sounds from hidden machines. A human male approached him with a slight smile. He was shorter than most coalition species and looked fragile. His skin was smooth and pale. No natural armor plating. No visible weapons growing from his body. No intimidating features at all. "Welcome aboard, Ambassador Veltar. I am Captain Lee Hyun," the human said in perfect coalition standard. His voice was calm and friendly. Veltar studied the human captain. Lee Hyun wore a simple blue uniform with small metal badges. His hands had no claws. His teeth looked flat and useless for fighting. The coalition files were right. Humans seemed remarkably weak. "Thank you, Captain," Veltar replied. "The coalition is pleased to inspect your vessel and observe your species' military capabilities." Lee Hyun nodded. "We are honored by your visit. Please let me show you around our ship." As they walked through the corridors, Veltar noticed strange things. The human crew moved differently than other species. They did not stomp or swagger like warriors. Instead, they walked with quiet steps and seemed aware of everything around them. When two humans met in the hallway, they would briefly look at each other and somehow communicate without speaking. "Your crew seems very quiet," Veltar observed. "We try to maintain efficient operations," Lee Hyun said. "Less noise means better focus." They entered the bridge. It was smaller than most warship command centers. The humans working at various stations looked up briefly when the captain entered, then returned to their tasks. Veltar expected them to show more reaction to seeing an alien ambassador. A young human female approached them. She had short black hair and wore a uniform with medical symbols. "Ambassador, this is Dr. Park Sumi, our chief medical officer," Lee Hyun said. "Pleased to meet you," Dr. Park Sumi said with a small bow. "Would you like to see our medical facilities?" Veltar agreed, curious about human medicine. The medical bay was surprisingly large for such a small ship. It had equipment he did not recognize and seemed designed to treat many different types of injuries. "This is impressive," Veltar said. "Why do you need such extensive medical facilities?" Dr. Park Sumi looked puzzled. "To take care of our crew, of course. Every person matters," this confused Veltar. In his species, the Cathani, injured soldiers were simply replaced with healthy ones. Individual survival was less important than mission success. But humans seemed to value each crew member. "How many crew do you lose in typical combat?" Veltar asked. "We try very hard to lose none," Dr. Park Sumi said seriously. "Every death is a failure." Veltar made mental notes. Humans appeared to have emotional attachments that would make them poor warriors. They cared too much about individual survival. Next, Lee Hyun showed him the weapon systems. The guns were adequate but not impressive. The shield seemed standard. The missiles looked normal. Nothing special compared to other coalition vessels. "These weapons appear sufficient for defense," Veltar said politely. "We hope we never need to use them," Lee Hyun replied. "But if we must fight, we will do our best." They visited the engine room next. A human male with tools in his hands greeted them. He had oil stains on his uniform and looked like he enjoyed working with machines. "This is Engineer Won Jae," Lee Hyun said. "He keeps our ship running." Won Jae wiped his hands clean and shook hands with Veltar. The human custom of touching hands still seemed strange to the ambassador. "Your engines seem standard coalition design," Veltar observed. "Yes, but we made some small changes," Won Jae said with enthusiasm. "Would you like to see?" Won Jae showed them several modifications to the engine systems. They looked crude compared to advanced alien technology, but the engineer seemed proud of his work. "Why did you change the original design?" Veltar asked. "We wanted to understand how it works," Won Jae said. "When you understand something completely, you can make it better." This surprised Veltar. Most species simply use technology as provided. They did not feel the need to understand or modify everything. They continued the tour through other parts of the ship. Veltar noticed that humans asked many questions about everything. They wanted to know about coalition military tactics, alien technologies, and battle strategies. They seemed genuinely interested in learning from more experienced species. "Your people are very curious," Veltar commented to Lee Hyun. "We believe knowledge makes us stronger," the captain replied. "We are new to the galaxy and have much to learn." This humble attitude reinforced Veltar's assessment. Humans recognized their own weakness and sought guidance from superior species. This was good for the coalition. In the cafeteria, Veltar observed humans eating together. They talked and sometimes laughed. The atmosphere was relaxed and friendly. Some humans played games during their break time. Others read books or worked on personal projects. Your crew seems very comfortable, Veltar noted. A happy crew works better, Li Hyun said. We take care of each other. Veltar saw this as another weakness. Professional soldiers should focus on duty, not personal comfort. As the day continued, alarms suddenly sounded throughout the ship. Humans immediately stopped what they were doing and moved to their stations with quick, purposeful steps. The relaxed atmosphere vanished instantly. Li Hyun touched a communication device. Report. Captain, we have received urgent news from Coalition Command, a voice replied. The hegemony has attacked the outer colonies. They request all available ships to assist. Veltar felt his stomach drop. The hegemony was the most dangerous military force in the galaxy. Their warriors were bred for combat and showed no mercy to enemies or civilians. This would be a serious battle. Set course for the rally point, Li Hyun ordered calmly. Prepare for combat operations. Veltar stared at the captain. Captain, perhaps your ship should remain here for safety. The hegemony is extremely dangerous. Li Hyun looked at him with steady eyes. Ambassador, the coalition called for help. We will answer. But your species is new to combat. You lack experience against such enemies. Then we will learn, Li Hyun said simply. Veltar felt concerned for these naive humans. They did not understand what they were volunteering for. The hegemony would crush them without effort. Their soft bodies and gentle nature made them completely unsuitable for real warfare. As the UES Busan changed course toward the battle zone, Veltar prepared himself to witness the quick defeat of the soft species who foolishly believed they could help fight the galaxy's most feared enemy. He had no idea that everything he thought he knew about humans was completely wrong. The combined coalition and human fleet arrived at the Kepler system 3 days later. Veltar stood on the bridge of the UES Busan, watching dozens of warships take their positions. The sight should have been reassuring, but he felt worried. Through the main view screen, he could see the devastation below. 3 colony worlds burned with orange fire. Space stations drifted as broken metal. Debris fields marked where civilian ships had tried to escape and failed. The hegemony has been busy, Captain Li Hyun said quietly. His voice sounded different now, still calm, but with an edge that had not been there before. Veltar noticed other changes too. The human crew moved with more purpose. Their casual conversations had stopped. Even their facial expressions seemed sharper. Fleet Admiral Krixna's massive voice filled the communication channels. The Thorgani commander was known throughout the galaxy for his tactical brilliance and ruthless efficiency. All ships, attend briefing coordinates. We will discuss battle plans. The fleet gathered around Krixna's flagship, a kilometer-long battlecruiser bristling with weapons. Veltar accompanied Li Hyun to the strategy meeting, curious to see how the humans would be assigned. The briefing room was enormous, filled with the galaxy's most experienced military commanders. Veltar recognized species from across the coalition: tall armored Thorgani, scaled reptilian commanders with multiple arms, insectoid hive minds speaking in unison, all proven warriors with centuries of combat experience. The humans looked tiny among these giants. Li Hyun sat beside a female human officer with sharp eyes and precise movements. She had introduced herself as Colonel Bei Rena, commander of human ground forces. Fleet Admiral Krixna activated a holographic display showing the enemy positions. Red markers indicated hegemony ships and defensive installations. There were many of them. The enemy has fortified all 3 worlds, Krixna began. War Prime Thulgak commands their forces. His reputation for brutality needs no explanation. Veltar shuddered. Thulgak was famous for destroying entire populations when faced with resistance. He showed no mercy to soldiers or civilians. We will execute a standard 3-phase assault, Krixna continued. First, naval bombardment to weaken their defenses. Second, ground invasion to secure key positions. Third, occupation and civilian evacuation. The alien commanders nodded. This was familiar coalition strategy. Overwhelming firepower followed by careful consolidation. Ship assignments are as follows, Krixna said, reading from a datapad. Thorgani battle groups will lead the main assault. Reptilian cruisers will provide fire support. Insectoid swarms will handle close combat operations. He paused and looked toward the humans. Human vessels will handle support duties and civilian evacuation. Your medical facilities will be useful for processing refugees. Veltar saw Li Hyun and Colonel Bei Rina exchange a quick glance. Something passed between them, but the ambassador could not interpret it. With respect, Admiral, Li Hyun said politely. Our crews are prepared for combat operations if needed. Several alien commanders made sounds that Veltar recognized as laughter. The idea of soft humans participating in real combat against the hegemony seemed amusing to them. Your willingness is appreciated, Crixina said with patronizing kindness. But leave the fighting to experienced warriors. Focus on what your species does best. And what is that? Colonel Bei Rina asked. Taking care of others, Crixina replied. Your medical skills and concern for civilians will be valuable. The meeting continued with detailed tactical discussions. Veltar listened as the coalition commanders planned their assault. They expected heavy casualties but believed their superior numbers would eventually win. After the briefing, Veltar followed the humans back to their ships. He wanted to observe their preparations for what he assumed would be a support role. On the UES Busan, he found the crew engaged in activities he did not expect. Instead of preparing medical supplies or evacuation procedures, they were running what appeared to be combat simulations. In one room, Lieutenant Kim Dae was practicing flight maneuvers that looked impossible. His fighter craft moved in patterns that defied normal physics. Other human pilots watched and offered suggestions for improvement. Those maneuvers seem very dangerous, Veltar commented. All effective tactics are dangerous, Kim Dae replied without looking away from his controls. The question is whether they are dangerous to us or to them. In another section, Sergeant Cho Minji was drilling her ground troops. But these were not standard coalition infantry exercises. The humans practiced moving through complex environments while protecting imaginary civilians. They worked in small teams, communicating with subtle gestures and sounds. Why do you train for scenarios you will not encounter? Veltar asked Cho Minji. How do you know what we will encounter? She replied. Better to be ready for everything. The human training continued for hours. Veltar watched Engineer Wan Jae modify equipment in ways that seemed random, but somehow purposeful. Dr. Park Sumi prepared medical stations not just for treating wounds, but for handling dozens of different alien physiologies. Most disturbing were the strategic sessions led by Captain Li Hyun and Colonel Bei Rina. They used computers to run thousands of battle simulations, testing different approaches and outcomes, but their simulations included variables that coalition doctrine ignored. Why do you factor in civilian casualties? Veltar asked during one session. Because they matter, Li Hyun said simply. But they complicate military planning. Most commanders ignore them. Most commanders are not human, Colonel Bei Rina said. The humans spent the night before battle in quiet preparation. Some wrote messages to family members. Others checked and rechecked their equipment. A few gathered in small groups to share food and conversation. Veltar found their behavior puzzling. They seemed calm despite facing their first real combat. Either they were too naive to understand the danger, or they had confidence that seemed unjustified. Are your people not afraid? He asked Dr. Park Sumi. Of course we are afraid, she replied. Fear keeps you alive, but we do not let it control our decisions. The hegemony is very dangerous. They have destroyed civilizations. So we have heard, Dr. Park Sumi said calmly. That is why they must be stopped. As morning approached, sensors detected movement from the hegemony fleet. War Prime Thulguk was preparing his own forces for battle. Intelligence reports suggested he commanded over 200 warships, all designed for maximum destruction. The coalition fleet moved into attack formation. Massive alien warships took their assigned positions, weapons charging, shields activating. The humans positioned their smaller vessels where ordered, apparently ready to fulfill their support role. Veltar watched from the UES Busan bridge as both fleets prepared for engagement. The upcoming battle would follow predictable patterns. Massive exchanges of firepower, boarding actions between heavily armored troops, slow grinding warfare until one side collapsed. Or so he thought. Captain Li Hyun stood quietly at his command station, watching the tactical displays with focused attention. His crew waited at their posts with patient readiness that seemed almost unnatural. All ships, prepare for battle, Fleet Admiral Crixina announced across the fleet communication channels. As the two fleets moved toward each other, Veltar prepared himself to witness what he expected would be a conventional space battle. The humans would play their minor support role, while the real warriors decided the outcome. He had no idea he was about to see something that would change his understanding of warfare forever. The battle began exactly as Veltar expected. Fleet Admiral Krixna ordered the massive coalition battleships forward in a straight line. Their weapons opened fire with brilliant flashes of energy that lit up space like artificial stars. The hegemony fleet responded predictably. Warprime Thulgak's ships formed defensive walls and returned fire with equal fury. Explosions bloomed between the two forces as shields absorbed punishment and missiles found their targets. Veltar watched from the UES Busan bridge as the familiar dance of space warfare unfolded. Both sides would trade shots for hours, slowly wearing down shields and armor until someone made a mistake or ran out of ammunition. The human ships hung back as ordered, apparently waiting for their chance to collect survivors and treat the wounded. Captain Lee Hyun stood quietly at his command post, watching the battle displays with calm attention. Standard engagement pattern, Veltar observed. This will take many hours to resolve. Will it? Lee Hyun asked without taking his eyes off the screens. Before Veltar could ask what he meant, everything changed. Lieutenant Kim Dae's fighter squadron launched from the UES Busan's hangar bay. But instead of flying toward the main battle, they disappeared into the chaos between the fleets. Veltar lost track of them on the sensors almost immediately. Where did your fighters go? He asked. Hunting, Lee Hyun replied. The word sent an odd chill through Veltar's body. Something in the captain's tone suggested this was not a normal military operation. On the tactical display, red warning lights began appearing throughout the hegemony formation. One enemy destroyer suddenly went dark, all power failing. Then a cruiser's weapon stopped firing. A third ship began spinning out of control as its navigation systems failed. What is happening to their ships? Veltar demanded. Lieutenant Kim Dae is very good at finding weak points, Lee Hyun said. Through the chaos of battle, Veltar caught glimpses of the human fighters. They moved in ways that should have been impossible. Instead of flying in straight lines like normal pilots, they twisted and curved through space like living creatures. They slipped between enemy shots that should have hit them. They appeared in places where no ship could survive, struck with surgical precision, then vanished before return fire arrived. How are they doing that? Veltar asked. Practice, Lee Hyun said simply. The hegemony commanders noticed the problem too. Several enemy squadrons broke off from the main battle to hunt the human fighters. But every time they thought they had cornered Kim Dae's pilots, the humans were somewhere else entirely. Even more disturbing, the human fighters were not trying to destroy enemy ships. They targeted specific systems with almost impossible accuracy. Communications arrays, shield generators, weapon control systems. Each strike caused maximum disruption with minimal damage. Why are they not going for kill shots? Veltar asked. Dead enemies cannot surrender, Lee Hyun replied. This confused the ambassador. Every species he knew fought to destroy their enemies as quickly as possible. The idea of deliberately avoiding lethal attacks seemed counterproductive. Then the UES Busan itself moved, and Veltar felt his world shift completely. The human ship did not join the main battle line. Instead, it simply disappeared from enemy sensors. One moment it was visible on all detection systems, the next it was gone as if it had never existed. How did we become invisible? Veltar asked in growing alarm. We did not become invisible, Lee Hyun said. We became uninteresting. Before Veltar could process this answer, alarms began sounding throughout the hegemony fleet. The UES Busan had somehow appeared in the middle of enemy formations, behind their defensive lines, in a position that should have been impossible to reach. But instead of opening fire on helpless enemy ships, the humans did something even more shocking. They began transmitting surrender demands directly to hegemony commanders. Attention, hegemony forces. Captain Lee Hyun's voice carried across all communication frequencies. You are surrounded and cut off from reinforcement. Lay down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Your crews will be treated according to coalition law. The response was immediate and predictable. Every hegemony ship in range opened fire on the UES Busan. Energy beams and missiles converged on the human vessel from all directions. The ship should have been destroyed instantly. Instead, it danced. Veltar watched in amazement as the UES Busan moved like a living thing. It twisted between incoming shots with fluid grace. When it could not avoid weapons fire, it somehow turned so that enemy beams struck the strongest parts of its armor at angles that deflected most of the damage. "This is impossible," Veltar whispered. "No," Li Hyun corrected. "This is difficult. We have been practicing." While the UES Busan held the attention of dozens of enemy ships, other human vessels appeared throughout the hegemony formation. They had somehow infiltrated enemy lines without being detected, using methods that coalition strategists would have declared impossible. But the real shock came when the boarding operations began. Sergeant Cho Minji's assault teams did not blast holes in enemy ships and storm through with overwhelming firepower. Instead, they cut precise entry points and flowed into hegemony vessels like water finding cracks in stone. Veltar watched the boarding camera feeds in growing horror and fascination. The humans moved through enemy corridors with terrifying efficiency. They seemed to know exactly where they were going and what they would find. When they encountered resistance, they eliminated threats with quick, precise violence that left no room for heroic last stands or dramatic confrontations. Even more disturbing was what they did with prisoners. Instead of the expected executions or torture, Dr. Park Sumi's medical teams began treating wounded hegemony soldiers. They set up field hospitals right in the captured sections of enemy ships and started saving lives. "Why are you helping enemy wounded?" Veltar asked. "Because they are wounded," Dr. Park Sumi replied over the communication channel. "That is reason enough." This act was so unprecedented that fighting actually stopped in several sectors. Hegemony soldiers, trained from birth to expect death or torture if captured, found themselves receiving medical care from the same humans who had just defeated them. The psychological effect was immediate and devastating. Hegemony morale began collapsing as word spread that humans were treating prisoners better than their own commanders treated them. But the most chilling moment came when War Prime Thulgak himself appeared on the communication channels. The legendary hegemony commander was known for his tactical brilliance and absolute ruthlessness. "Human vessels," his voice carried across space like a growling predator. "You fight like no species I have encountered." "What are you?" Captain Li Hyun's response was quiet and calm. "We are what happens when predators learn to cooperate." The words hung in space like a death sentence. For the first time in his military career, War Prime Thulgak was facing an enemy he did not understand. Veltar felt something cold settle in his stomach as he began to realize that everything he thought he knew about humans was not just wrong, but dangerously wrong. These were not the soft, caring creatures he had observed. They were something else entirely, something that had been very carefully pretending to be harmless. The battle was far from over, but already the outcome seemed inevitable. The humans were not just winning, they were rewriting the rules of warfare itself, and they were doing it with a calm, methodical precision that suggested this was not their limit, but merely their beginning. War Prime Thulgak's rage echoed across all communication channels. His voice carried the fury of a predator that had never been challenged before. "You dare to mock the hegemony with your weakness," he snarled at the human fleet. "You save our wounded like soft-hearted children playing at war. I will show you what real combat means." Veltar watched the tactical displays with growing dread as new orders flowed through the hegemony fleet. Red warning indicators appeared around the colony worlds below. The enemy was no longer targeting military installations, they were aiming at civilian populations. "All hegemony forces," Thulgak commanded, "begin bombardment of population centers. Show these humans the price of their foolish mercy." Energy beams began falling from hegemony ships onto the planets below. Cities that had survived the initial invasion now burned under deliberate attack. Civilian evacuation centers became priority targets. Even the refugee camps were marked for destruction. Veltar felt sick watching the massacre unfold. This was exactly what Thulgak intended. Force the humans to choose between protecting innocence and military victory. Make them abandon their careful tactics and fight conventionally, where superior hegemony firepower would crush them. But something strange happened on the human ships. Instead of panic or rage, a different kind of quiet settled over the crews. Veltar noticed it first on the UES Busan bridge. Captain Li Hyun's movements became more precise. His voice grew softer. Even his breathing seemed more controlled. "Captain," came Lieutenant Kim Dae's voice over the communication system. "Sensors show civilian bombardment in progress. Confirmed, Li Hyun replied in a tone that made Veltar's skin crawl. All units changed to Protocol 7. Veltar had never heard of Protocol 7, neither had the coalition forces, judging by the confused chatter on their channels. But the effect on human personnel was immediate and chilling. Dr. Park Sumi's medical teams began moving with mechanical efficiency. Engineer Wan Jae's modifications to ship systems suddenly revealed purposes that had been hidden before. Sergeant Cho Minji's ground forces shifted into formation patterns that looked less like military units and more like hunting packs. "What is Protocol 7? Veltar asked. Captain Li Hyun looked at him with eyes that seemed completely different from the friendly human who had welcomed him aboard days earlier. They were still calm, still intelligent, but now they held something that made the ambassador want to step backward. "Protocol 7 is what we do when someone threatens children," Li Hyun said quietly. The change in human behavior was subtle but terrifying. They had not become more violent or emotional. Instead, they had become more focused. Every movement served a purpose. Every decision led toward a specific goal. They moved like a machine designed for a single task. Lieutenant Kim Dae's fighter squadron vanished from sensors completely, not invisible like before but gone as if they had stopped existing. Then hegemony ships began dying. Not disabled, not captured, dead. The first enemy vessel simply exploded. One moment it was firing on a civilian hospital. The next it was expanding debris. No warning, no chance to surrender, just sudden absolute destruction. How did they destroy that ship so quickly? Veltar demanded. Kim Dae found their ammunition storage, Li Hyun said calmly. More hegemony ships died in rapid succession. Each death was precise and immediate. The human fighters had somehow identified the exact weak points that would cause catastrophic failures. They struck with surgical accuracy that left no survivors, but it was not random killing. Veltar realized with growing horror that the humans were selecting specific targets. Ships that had participated in civilian bombardment died first. Commanders who had given orders to attack innocents found their vessels crippled and powerless. The UES Busan itself began hunting with methodical precision. It moved through space like a living predator, appearing where enemy ships least expected it. Each engagement lasted only seconds. The humans would strike vital systems, disable the target, then move on to the next victim. "Why do you not finish them?" Veltar asked as another crippled hegemony ship drifted helplessly. "They stopped shooting civilians," Li Hyun explained. "So they get to live." The psychological effect on the hegemony forces was devastating. They had expected the humans to become angry and make mistakes. Instead, they had triggered something far worse. The humans had become patient, methodical killers who seemed to understand exactly how to cause maximum fear with minimum effort. Sergeant Cho Minji's boarding teams moved through captured enemy vessels with frightening efficiency. But now they were not just taking prisoners. They were gathering information. Every computer system was accessed. Every communication log was copied. Every tactical plan was stolen and analyzed. Within hours, the humans knew more about hegemony operations than some enemy commanders knew about their own forces. "How are you processing so much intelligence so quickly?" Veltar asked. "We are very good at learning," Colonel Bayrina replied over the communication system. Her voice carried the same quiet intensity as the others. "And we have been studying you for a long time." This statement chilled Veltar to his core. How long had humans been watching other species? What had they learned? What were they planning? Dr. Park Sumi's medical reports revealed another disturbing truth. Human casualties were almost non-existent, not because they were avoiding danger, but because they seemed to predict enemy actions with impossible accuracy. They moved through battle zones as if they knew exactly where every shot would be fired. "Your people fight as if they can see the future," Veltar observed. "We cannot see the future," Dr. Park Sumi replied while treating a wounded hegemony prisoner with gentle care. "But we are very good at understanding patterns." Engineer Wan Jae's true modifications became apparent as human ships began performing impossible maneuvers. They moved faster than their engines should allow. Their shields absorbed more damage than the power systems could support. Their weapons fired with accuracy that exceeded sensor capabilities. "You have been lying about your technology," Veltar accused. "No," Wan Jae said calmly. "We simply did not show you everything. You never asked the right questions. War Prime Thulgak's communications became increasingly desperate as his fleet crumbled around him. The legendary commander who had never lost a battle found himself facing enemies that seemed to predict his every move. His most experienced captains fell to tactics they had never encountered. His most powerful weapons proved useless against opponents who simply were not where the shots landed. "What are you?" he demanded again over open channels. This time it was Colonel Bayrina who answered. Her voice carried across space with quiet authority. "We are the species that survived on a world where everything wanted to eat us. We are the predators who learned that cooperation makes us stronger than any individual hunter. We are what happens when you threaten our young." The final words were delivered with such calm certainty that even Veltar felt afraid. He was beginning to understand that humans were not just dangerous because of their weapons or tactics. They were dangerous because they thought about violence in ways that other species could not comprehend. They did not fight with rage or hatred. They fought with the patient, methodical precision of creatures who had spent millions of years perfecting the art of killing. And they did it while maintaining moral standards that somehow made them more terrifying, not less. As the battle continued, Veltar realized that the galaxy had made a terrible mistake. They had welcomed what they thought were harmless refugees into their civilization. Instead, they had invited apex predators to examine their weaknesses and learn their secrets. The humans had been studying them all along, and now they were applying those lessons with devastating effectiveness. Veltar could not sleep that night. The images from the battle played over and over in his mind. Human ships moving like living creatures, enemy vessels dying with surgical precision, the calm voices of human commanders as they dismantled the most feared military force in the galaxy. He found Captain Li Hyun in the observation deck, standing alone before a large window that showed the stars. The human looked peaceful, almost relaxed. This was the same person who had coordinated the systematic destruction of dozens of enemy warships just hours earlier. "Captain," Veltar said quietly, "I need to understand what I have witnessed." Li Hyun turned toward him with that same gentle smile he had worn when they first met. But now Veltar saw something different in the human's eyes, something that had always been there, hidden behind the friendly expression. "What would you like to know, Ambassador? What are humans, really?" Veltar asked. "Your people are not what they appear to be." Li Hyun nodded slowly. "No, we are not. Would you like to see our true nature?" Before Veltar could answer, the human activated a wall display. Information began flowing across the screen. Data about human evolution, biology, and psychology. What the ambassador read made his blood run cold. "Every species in the galaxy evolved from prey animals," Li Hyun explained calmly. "Creatures that survived by hiding, running, or living in large groups for protection. Even the most aggressive races like the hegemony came from herbivores that learned to fight when cornered." Veltar stared at the data. It was true. The Kithani had evolved from small creatures that lived in underground burrows. The Thorgani came from herd animals that gathered in groups for safety. Every spacefaring race had prey animal ancestors. "Humans are different," Li Hyun continued. "We evolved from predators. Not just any predators, but pack hunters. Apex predators. For millions of years we were the most dangerous thing on our planet." "But your bodies," Veltar protested. "You have no claws, no armor, no natural weapons." Li Hyun smiled, and for the first time Veltar noticed how sharp human teeth really were. "Our weapons are up here," the captain said, tapping his head. "We hunt with our minds." Dr. Park Sumi joined them, carrying a medical data pad. Her presence had always seemed comforting before. Now Veltar saw the quick, observant way she moved, the way her eyes constantly assessed everything around her. "The ambassador wants to understand human physiology," Li Hyun said. Dr. Park Sumi nodded and activated her data pad. "Humans are persistence hunters," she explained. "We are built to chase prey over long distances. Our bodies can run for hours without stopping. We heal faster than most species. Our immune systems adapt to new threats and become stronger." She showed Veltar images of human anatomy. "We have excellent vision and hearing. We can see clearly in low light. Our hands are designed for making and using tools. Most importantly, our brains are wired for pattern recognition and cooperative planning." "Pattern recognition," Veltar repeated. "We are very good at predicting behavior," Dr. Park Sumi said. "When you hunt animals for millions of years, you learn to think like them. You learn to anticipate their moves. This works on any prey species." The implications hit Veltar like a physical blow. All spacefaring races were prey species. To humans, they were all just different types of animals to be understood and predicted. Sergeant Cho Minji appeared in the doorway. Captain, ground operations are complete. We have secured all enemy installations. Casualties? Lee Hyun asked. Minimal on our side. Enemy forces surrendered once they realized resistance was pointless. Veltar watched the exchange with growing horror. These humans discussed military operations like it was routine work. No celebration of victory. No mourning for the dead. Just calm evaluation of results. How did you coordinate so perfectly during battle? Veltar asked Cho Minji. The sergeant looked puzzled by the question. We are pack hunters. We always know where the others are and what they are thinking. It is natural for us. Natural, Veltar whispered. Engineer Wan Jae joined the group, his uniform still stained with grease from working on ship systems. Ambassador, you seemed interested in our technology modifications. He activated another display showing the true extent of human engineering. The simple improvements Wan Jae had shown before were actually complete redesigns of alien technology. Human ships were now far more advanced than anything the Coalition possessed. How long have you been studying our technology? Veltar asked. Since we first made contact, Wan Jae replied. Every piece of equipment you gave us was taken apart, analyzed and understood completely. Then we made it better. You have been spying on us. We have been learning from you, Wan Jae corrected. It is what predators do. We study our environment and adapt to it. Colonel Bae Rina's voice came over the communication system. Captain Warprime Tholgak requests a meeting. He wants to discuss surrender terms. Bring him aboard, Lee Hyun said. Let him see what he was really fighting. An hour later, Veltar found himself in the same briefing room where he had first met the human officers. Now Warprime Tholgak sat at the table, his massive form dwarfed by the quiet presence of the humans around him. The legendary hegemony commander looked broken. His armor was scorched and his eyes held the hollow look of someone who had seen something that shattered his understanding of the universe. I have fought for 300 years, Tholgak said in a voice barely above a whisper. I have conquered 50 worlds. I have never been defeated. How did you do this? Captain Lee Hyun studied the alien commander with calm interest. You fought like prey animals that learned to be aggressive. We fought like predators who learned to cooperate. I do not understand the difference. Prey animals fight to survive, Colonel Bae Rina explained. They're reactive. They respond to threats when they appear. Predators hunt. We are proactive. We choose when and how to engage. We control the battle from the beginning. Dr. Park Sumi added, prey animals see violence as a last resort, something to be avoided if possible. For predators, violence is just another tool. We use exactly as much as needed, no more, no less. Your people saved my wounded soldiers, Tholgak said, confusion clear in his voice. Because they were no longer a threat? Dr. Park Sumi replied. We do not kill unnecessarily. That would be wasteful. Engineer Wan Jae leaned forward. Every species we have met thinks about war the same way. Build bigger weapons, stronger armor, more ships. You try to win through superior force, then how else would you win? Tholgak asked. By being smarter, Wan Jae said simply. By understanding your enemy better than they understand themselves. By making them defeat themselves. Sergeant Cho Minji spoke for the first time. You attacked our civilians because you wanted to make us angry. You thought anger would make us stupid, but anger focuses us. When you threatened children, you did not make us lose control. You made us more dangerous. Veltar watched Tholgak's face as understanding slowly dawned. The hegemony commander was realizing that he had not just lost a battle. He had been completely outclassed by a species that thought about warfare in ways his people could never comprehend. What happens now? Tholgak asked quietly. Now you go home, Lee Hyun said. You tell your people that the galaxy has changed. The age of conquest through brute force is over. There are predators among the prey now. And if we refuse to change? Lee Hyun's smile was gentle and terrifying. Then you will discover that we have been very restrained so far. As Tholgak was escorted away, Veltar remained in the briefing room with the human officers. He felt like he was seeing them clearly for the first time. They had never been the soft, caring creatures he had observed. They were apex predators wearing the mask of civilization. And the most frightening part was that the mask was not fake. They genuinely cared about others. They really did value individual lives. Their mercy was real, But so was their capacity for violence, and they could switch between the two with calm, rational precision that no prey species could match or understand. The galaxy had not gained new allies. It had acquired new shepherds, and Veltar was beginning to understand that humanity would decide what kind of future the galaxy would have. 3 weeks after the battle, Veltar sat in his private quarters aboard the Coalition flagship, staring at a blank report screen. How could he possibly explain what he had witnessed to the Galaxy Council? How could prey species understand the nature of apex predators? The war had ended not with a great final battle, but with systematic dismantling of hegemony resistance. Human forces had moved through enemy territories like water flowing around stones. Every defensive position was bypassed or neutralized with minimal casualties. Every attempt at counterattack was predicted and countered before it began. War Prime Thulgok had been returned to his own people as promised, but the message he carried had shattered hegemony morale completely. Their most feared commander spoke of humans with the hollow voice of someone who had seen his own insignificance. Fleet Admiral Krixna entered Veltar's quarters without announcement. The massive Thorgani commander looked older than before, his proud bearing diminished by recent events. "Have you finished your report?" Krixna asked. "I do not know how to begin," Veltar admitted. "The Council will not believe what happened here." "They must believe it," Krixna said heavily. "The galaxy must understand what we have learned." Both commanders had watched human efficiency in the aftermath of victory. Captain Li Hyun's forces had restored order to the devastated colonies with speed that seemed impossible. Dr. Park Sumi's medical teams had treated over 10,000 wounded from all species, without losing a single patient. Engineer Wanjie had rebuilt destroyed infrastructure, using techniques that improved on the original designs. The humans worked with the same methodical precision in peace as they had shown in war. They did not celebrate their victory or demand rewards. They simply moved on to the next task that needed completion. "They are not like us," Krixna continued. "When we win battles, we feel pride. We demand recognition. We want others to fear our strength. And humans?" Veltar asked. "They act like victory was inevitable, like the outcome was never in doubt." This was true. In all his conversations with human personnel, Veltar had never heard them express surprise at their success. They discussed the battle like workers talking about completing a difficult but routine job. A soft chime indicated someone requesting entry. Captain Li Hyun appeared in the doorway, still wearing that gentle smile that now seemed so ominous to Veltar. "Ambassador, Admiral," Li Hyun greeted them politely. "I wanted to thank you for your cooperation during the recent operations." "Our cooperation?" Krixna repeated with bitter humor. "We did nothing but watch." "You provided valuable learning opportunities," Li Hyun said seriously. "Observing coalition tactics and equipment helped us understand galactic military thinking." The casual way he spoke of studying them like laboratory specimens made Veltar's skin crawl. "How long have humans been analyzing other species?" "Since first contact," Li Hyun replied without hesitation. "It is natural for us to study our environment. You are part of our environment now." Dr. Park Sumi joined them carrying medical reports. "The wounded are recovering well. We have learned much about treating different alien physiologies." "Learned," Veltar noted. "You speak of everything as learning." "Because everything is learning," Dr. Park Sumi said. "Every interaction teaches us something new. Every challenge shows us ways to improve." Lieutenant Kim Dae appeared in the corridor behind them. His fighter squadron had become legendary throughout the fleet for tactics that defied conventional understanding. Enemy pilots spoke of him with superstitious fear. "Captain," Kim Dae reported, "patrol complete. No hostile contacts detected. The hegemony fleet has withdrawn beyond our sensor range." "They will not return," Li Hyun said with quiet certainty. "How can you be sure?" Krixna asked. "Because they understand now," Kim Dae replied. "They know what they are facing." Sergeant Cho Minji and Engineer Wan Jae arrived together, completing the group of humans who had transformed galactic warfare. To Veltar, they looked like ordinary people having a casual conversation. But he now knew better. "Status report," Li Hyun requested. "Ground forces have completed pacification operations," Cho Minji said. "All enemy installations are secured. Civilian populations have been relocated to safe zones. Ship repairs are finished," Wan Jae added. I have also completed analysis of captured hegemony technology. It is less advanced than coalition equipment, but they used it more aggressively. Interesting, Li Hyun mused. File those observations for future reference. Veltar watched this exchange with growing understanding. The humans were not just reporting on current operations. They were building a database of knowledge about every species they encountered. Every weakness, every strength, every tactical tendency. What are your people planning? He asked directly. The humans looked at him with expressions of genuine confusion. Planning for what? Dr. Park Sumi asked. For conquest, for empire, for domination of the galaxy. The suggestion seemed to puzzle them. Li Hyun tilted his head slightly. Why would we want to conquer anyone? Because you can, Krixna said. Your capabilities far exceed anything we have seen. You could defeat any coalition fleet. Defeating someone and conquering them are different things, Cho Minji observed. Conquest requires controlling territory and populations. That is inefficient. Then what do you want? Veltar demanded. The humans exchanged glances, communicating in that silent way that had proven so effective in battle. Finally, Li Hyun answered. We want to learn. We want to explore. We want to find new challenges and solve interesting problems. And if other species threaten you, then we will defend ourselves, Li Hyun said simply. As efficiently as necessary, Dr. Park Sumi added. We hope it will not be necessary. Violence should be the last option, not the first. But you are so good at violence, Veltar protested. We are good at many things, Wanjay said. Engineering, medicine, agriculture, art, music, literature. Violence is just one tool in a large collection. Kim Dae nodded agreement. A sword is useful for cutting, but you do not use it to write poetry. The galaxy must know, Krixna said suddenly. All species must understand what humans really are. What are we? Li Hyun asked with genuine curiosity. Veltar found his voice. You are predators who chose to be civilized. You are the most dangerous species in known space, and you use that danger to protect others rather than exploit them. That is an interesting perspective, Li Hyun said thoughtfully. It terrifies me, Veltar admitted. Your people could remake galactic civilization by force, but instead, you work within our systems and improve them gradually. Force creates resentment, Cho Minji observed. Resentment creates resistance. Resistance creates conflict. Conflict is wasteful. So you prefer cooperation, Krixna said. We prefer efficiency, Wanjay corrected. Cooperation is usually more efficient than conflict. Usually, Dr. Park Sumi emphasized. But not always. The unspoken threat in her gentle voice made both alien commanders step backward involuntarily. The humans had demonstrated their capacity for violence. Now they were showing their preference for peace. The combination was more frightening than either alone would have been. The galaxy is changing, Li Hyun said as the group prepared to leave. Old ways of thinking about war and peace, strength and weakness, predator and prey. These concepts may not apply anymore. What replaces them? Veltar asked. Li Hyun smiled that enigmatic smile. We will discover that together. After the humans left, Veltar and Krixna sat in silence for long minutes. Finally, the Thorgany admiral spoke. They are not conquerors. No, Veltar agreed. They are something worse. They are shepherds. Worse? Conquerors can be defeated or overthrown. Shepherds cannot be removed because the flock needs them. Veltar turned back to his report screen and began typing. The galaxy would learn the truth about humanity. They would understand that the balance of power had shifted permanently. Not because humans sought dominance, but because they had evolved beyond the limitations that constrained every other species. The age of prey animals stumbling through space, fighting over resources and territory, was ending. The age of intelligent predators choosing cooperation over conflict was beginning. And the most terrifying part was that humanity genuinely wanted to make the galaxy a better place. They would succeed, because failure was not in their nature. The universe had gained protectors who were more dangerous than any previous threat. And there was absolutely nothing anyone could do about it except learn to live in the world humans were quietly building around them. Whether that was salvation or doom remained to be seen.